Lauderato, and this is Bridge Prep. My guest today is Marquise Parker. He is a Senior Vice President in the Healthcare Division of Aon Affinity US, where he serves as a business leader for the private practice, school, and human services businesses, and collaborates with other divisional leaders to drive enterprise-wide growth strategy. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much.
So before we get started, for those of our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with Aon, tell us about what they do.
Sure. Aon is a $12 billion global provider of risk management and human capital solutions. It has three different business units. One that handles human capital consulting and outsourcing work called Aon Hewitt. One that does reinsurance brokerage, that's insurance for insurance companies. That one's called Aon Benfield. And then one that handles risk management, insurance brokerage, and other insurance-related services. That's Aon Risk Solutions, and that's the unit that my business unit falls within. Great.
Now, as the Senior Vice President in Aon's Healthcare Division, can you walk us through a day in your life?
Sure. A day in my life is pretty varied, and it really depends on what the given priority is for the day. Overall, my role involves P&L management for the three businesses that you mentioned earlier. So on a given day, I could be on a series of calls or meetings with my insurance underwriting team, and I have all of my team are based outside of the Philadelphia area, and I'm in Chicago, so a lot of my time is spent on the phone and calls, whether it's with my underwriters, my marketing manager, sales reps, back office operations folks. I spend a lot of time on the phone, and then a lot of my work also involves leveraging the skills that I learned back when I was a management consultant. I used to work at McKinsey because I do a lot of business development, communication, strategy type work in my role as well, both for my three businesses and also for the rest of the Affinity Healthcare Division around growth strategy and operational efficiency. So on a given day, my task could go from handling interactions with an insurance carrier to talking with underwriters to talking with marketing folks to working on a strategy deck about a new insurance program that I might want to launch or a new sales channel that I want to try to find a way to pursue. So it's pretty varied.
Sure, sounds like it, and a lot of phone time. That's a critical skill.
Lots of phone time.
So tell me a bit about what other sort of characteristics or attributes that you think are critical for someone to have in a position and in an industry like yours.
Sure. I think that, so you mentioned, communication. That's probably the biggest one as you move further upward in your career, because not only do you have to be able to interact with the folks who report to you and are your peers, but also to the folks that are more senior than you. I spend a lot of time talking to the CEO, the CFO, the head of operations for my business unit, and also for Aon Risk Solutions, the parent unit above Aon Affinity. I also spend a lot of time interacting with the executives at our insurance carrier partners, the ones that provide solutions for my businesses. So the communication skills are key. Another one that I think is probably a differentiator for me is structured problem-solving capabilities. One of the things that I picked up when I was a consultant. There are often times that you'll be faced with really difficult, challenging problems that affect your businesses or maybe an adjacent business. And most people tend to sort of try to figure out all the different possible solutions and then try to do them all. And, often you can come up with 100 solutions, do 99 of them, fix 99 things, never get it right, and then on the 100th you get it right. And by that time you've burned a lot of time. One of the things that I do is structured problem solving. So figuring out the issues that matter most, pruning off the ones that don't matter as much, and then really dedicating time and effort and analysis to the issues that are most important to solving a given problem. And that's something that over the course of all the previous roles that I've had in Aon, that's probably something that differentiated me most. And I think the final capability in a role like mine where you have to combine general business acumen with understanding of the insurance industry is purely industry knowledge. And that's probably the one where at this point I still have the most room to grow. I have gone off and gotten my property and casualty insurance license. So I understand high level things, but because I'm not someone that grew up in insurance, I don't know the detailed intricacies of policy management systems or marketing approaches that apply to insurance and insurance programs and affinity groups and things like that. So that's probably the area where some of my peers are 5 or 6 steps ahead of me, but I'm putting effort into learning all of that so I can catch up as quickly as possible.
Great. Now, just to recap, then you said communication, structured problem-solving capabilities, and then general business acumen with understanding of the insurance market. Let's focus just on that second point, the structured problem-solving capabilities. I know that's something that everyone, no matter where they are in their career, can really relate to. What would you say has been the most valuable resource or influence in your career in order to developing that structured problem-solving capability?
I think the most valuable experience was my years as a management consultant because I actually had to do it. And when you're a consultant and you're on a team and your firm has been hired by a given client, that client is paying for your team to come in, diagnose a problem quickly, find as much information as possible about the root cause of the problem, and then come up with an approach to address it, to fix it. And that, you excuse me, that's something where you have to be able to find the answer quickly and then come up with a way to actually implement it. And the structured problem solving is the way to go. That's something that it just, doing that sort of thinking, that sort of work for those years embedded itself in my head and actually impacted the way that I think through most problems, work-related and otherwise. My first exposure to it was in my MBA program strategy class, and looking at the way that we broke down the case studies that we had to do to find out the issues that mattered. Then when when I was preparing for management consulting interviews, those interviews are consulting case interviews. So you have to learn how to, in 30, 35 minutes, hear a story, structure the things that would matter most, ask for the right information, and then come up with the solution. So, those experiences that were very, very early in my business career, basically in business school in the first few years afterwards, were crucial because I lean on those experiences now every day. And it's been years since I've been a consultant.
Great. So did you always know that this was the field and the role for you, or if not, when did it really click?
Definitely didn't know. I don't think anybody grows up saying, I want to work in the insurance industry. It's one of those things that people sort of fall into. For me, it literally was falling into it. After I left McKinsey, I took a job with a private equity opportunity that had me move here to Chicago, and it turned out not to be the kind of opportunity that I thought it would be. So after a little more than a year, I left there and landed at Aon. And I didn't know much about what Aon did, but the role that I found was a strategy and M&A sort of role, and that fit me. And that was in what is now Aon Hewitt, our human capital division. And after a few months there, probably about 8 or 9 months, I received an opportunity to move over into our insurance brokerage division and work on a global strategy team. And after doing that, I received the opportunity to be on the special projects team for our CEO. And through different moves, I eventually got more and more exposure to the insurance part of what Aon does. And even though Aon works in several different fields, insurance is sort of seen as the bread and butter. So when I got the opportunity for my current role to run these 3 insurance businesses, I knew that I had to develop that capability because it's something that I didn't have. And that's why I got the license. And now that I'm in it, I look at the job as being much more about the general business concepts and insurance is sort of the playground that I'm playing in, but the toys that I'm using, the strategy, the operations, the finance, the marketing, those are the same toys that I'd play in, whether the sandbox was technology or CPG or oil and gas. It's just that insurance is different sandbox to use those toys in.
Sure. So I know a lot of our listeners will be aware just how much the insurance industry has changed over the last several years. I'm wondering what has helped you stay on top of everything with the constantly evolving landscape?
I think the biggest thing for me is the fact that it's pretty much new for me. And I guess I should explain that a little more. So everyone knows about insurance from being a customer, a consumer of it, and that was basically my exposure before I came to Aon. And over the last 5 years since I've been at Aon, there have been a lot of changes, but because I was relatively new, because I was totally new to working in the industry, I'm learning a lot of these things for the first time. And so, a lot of my colleagues have been in the insurance game for decades, and I hear them talk about the way that things used to be, but, this is all first-time stuff for me. So there have been changes in the insurance environment, regulations, a lot of the Elliott Spitzer stuff in New York that hit Aon and some of its competitors. What I do is I learn everything as if it's the first time for me, because it really is the first time for me. And then I talk to my colleagues about the way things used to be, and I compare the present to the past, and that helps to inform the decisions that I make in the present, because I know the way that things used to be, and I do understand the way that things are changing, particularly when it comes to technology, things like Obamacare, federal government regulations. There are just all these different factors that are in play, and I have the good fortune of all of these factors popping up as I'm learning the industry for the first time. So it's while the industry's changing, it's not really changing for me because I'm learning it all on the fly.
Great point. Now, since 2010, you've held leadership roles in strategy and business operations in 3 of 4 business units at Aon. What would you say has been the most challenging about taking on a leadership role in different business units?
I think that it's the fact that as I've jumped around into my different roles, I've always started from scratch in terms of knowledge. And as such, when you take on a leadership role, you're expected to be able to provide guidance and have impact immediately, and it becomes difficult to do so when you initially have to get your bearings while also leading. So I know I go back to the whole consulting thing. One of the great things about being a manager consulting is that you have to learn how to get up to speed very quickly for a given client or a given project. And as I've moved into these different roles, I've sort of become adept at building at least a baseline set of knowledge very quickly. And then that gives me enough of a foundation to be able to have some impact and know the right questions to ask so that I can continue to develop my knowledge base over time. So, I've been, the businesses that I run now, I've been running them for about 13, going on 14 months, and I'm not an expert at them, but I know enough to be dangerous. I know enough to be conversant on different things, and I know enough to ask the right kind of questions to help build my knowledge even more. And from that point, building the knowledge base lets me understand how I can apply just the general business skills that I have to be able to drive impact in each of those roles.
Sure. Now, when it comes to formulating strategies and analyzing mission-critical issues for companies, how many of your decisions would you say are guided by gut feeling then? Good question.
I would say that I wouldn't say that I drive a lot of my decisions by gut feeling, because I try to have some data, some foundation for the decisions that I make. I don't want to make snap judgments or snap decisions. But as I learn more, it helps to develop, just kind of my understanding of a situation. That makes it easier for me to make, gut feeling sorts of decisions. But when it comes to any decision that has any weight or gravity to it, I try to put some thought, I try to put some analysis behind it on the front end, so that if the decision that I make turns out to be a little bit off, or maybe not the 100% solution, I want to be able to have some foundation to be able to show why I made the decision that I made. And, gut feeling is great for leading you in a certain direction, or giving you a certain hypothesis of what the answer to an issue might be, or the direction of a decision that you might make could be. But I think once you get that initial direction, it's incumbent upon me and other professionals to get as much information as you can, so that you're making a gut feeling influence decision, as opposed to just going with your gut and just going into something without fully analyzing the issues at play.
Sure. And do you see that changing maybe even down the road somewhere, once you're even more experienced? You think you can potentially rely on that? Or
Probably so, because I think that it's all about the knowledge base, right? So it's like, if let's say in 20 years, after I've seen a lot of different things, I've learned a lot of things, I've heard a lot of different things, and you doing that research to guide your decision probably isn't as necessary when your knowledge base is much stronger. I just know that at this point in my career, even though I've been out of college 15 years, I've developed a lot of knowledge in that time, but there are still a lot of things that I don't know. So I try to be a little bit more deliberate. I think in the future, as I continue to develop my knowledge and my understanding of the job and the industry and the role, it'll be much easier to just go from my gut and be comfortable with doing so. Sure.
Well, we have time for just one more question, and I see here that you actually maintain a blog amid all of your responsibilities. I'm amazed that you find time to fit that in. What made you decide to start a blog?
Oh, wow, yeah. That's been a labor of love. I've been doing that since October 2003. And I started it when I was applying to business school, and I didn't know anybody who'd ever gone to business school before. So for me, I just saw it as a way to sort of tell my story of what it was like to be an applicant. And then once I got into business school and saw that I had developed a pretty good following of people who were asking me good questions and things, I was like, well, I'll just share what it's like to be a student in business school, and I got a lot of followers from that. And then when I got to McKinsey, they told me that I couldn't talk about what it was like to be a consultant. And from there, I just changed it to, I can't tell you about my life, so just ask me questions. And so since 2006, I guess not last 9 years, it's been very much about people asking me questions, advice on different things, and I'll just offer whatever questions that I can. The thing that has allowed me to keep doing it, and I don't do it as frequently anymore, but the thing that's allowed me to keep maintaining it is that I get enjoyment out of being able to help people avoid a lot of the same pitfalls professionally that I face. And it just feels like I'm doing a good deed for people when I'm answering the question of, a 21 or 22-year-old who's trying to figure out what sort of moves that he or she could make to set themselves up for business school, or someone who is looking at being a management consultant and doesn't know where to get information, or someone who's reached a crossroads in their career, because I've gone through those experiences and I didn't have anyone that I could talk to. So it makes me feel good to know that I could be that person for someone else.
Great, to really give back.
Yeah.
Perfect. And what's the name of your blog for our listeners who want to follow?
Oh, it's under my name. So Marquise.Parker. I'm sorry, MarquiseParker.com/blog.
Great. And Marquise is Marquis for anyone who would like to check that out. Great. Well, Marquise, thank you so much for joining us. That's all the time we have for today, but I really do appreciate you speaking with us.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much.